Hello and welcome everybody to our concurrent training day 3 of We Give Summit. My name is Isis Krause. I am the Chief Strategy Officer for Philanthropy Together. If you don't know by now, if this is your first session with us, we are a field catalyst for collective giving, and we help giving circles and women's funds and collaborative funds and all kinds of groups that do engage in collective giving to do their work stronger and better and help more donors to understand this model and get involved. Today's session I'm really excited about. This is a new training that we've developed called Thrive. This is all about looking at your giving circle and how you can do that work best. We are a pretty small group today, so I would love to have this be super interactive. We can really go off of the questions and the comments that you all have around your giving circles. And yeah, we have a 90-minute session all together, so stay with me. There's a lot of content in here, but I hope it'll be fun, and I hope you all will learn a little bit. Since we're such a small group, and I see everyone's off video right now, I don't know if folks would be comfortable joining on camera for a little bit or just unmuting and saying hello. That would be really helpful for me getting to know all of you. And let me share my screen so we can get into the presentation as well. So I talked a little bit about what Philanthropy Together does and what we do. Housekeeping, closed caption is available in the Zoom if you need that. And I'd love for you to be on video, but of course, no worries if not. And kids, creatures, pod and housemates, welcome. And we're going to go through a lot of content, so I would recommend having a little piece of paper with you to jot down some notes. I'd love to start as an introduction and ask all of you, what does having a thriving giving circle mean to you? You obviously came here wanting to have a thriving giving circle, or you're feeling some tension in that. And so I would love to hear, what does thriving mean to you? Either in the chat, or if somebody feels comfortable unmuting and sharing that way, I would love that too. Natalie says, having members show up consistently. Yes, ma'am. Anna, are you calling all the way from Germany?
Yes. And hello, everyone from Berlin in Germany. In Germany, it's like 6 in the afternoon, so it's basically dinner time for me. I'm preparing meal for my kids, so I'm very sorry when I much more listening than getting involved with you. But to your addressing your question, for me, it means raising more money for feminist transformation, because I have a feminist giving circle.
I love that. Thank you, Anna. Well, we're honored that you're here while you make dinner. No worries at all. Let's see. Janine, I hope I said that right, says active participation in conversations and giving. Love that. Linda and Nora, anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
Yeah, this is Linda. One thing is we've got other giving circles popping up around our area. And so for us to thrive, we need to distinguish ourselves. So looking for ways to do that.
That is a really good one. Yes, it's like the flip side of, we all want more of this work in the world and more collective giving. And then also when there's so many giving circles in one geographic area, what do you do about that? Wonderful. Nora, are you able to add to our conversation? And no worries if not.
Yeah, definitely. And sorry, my camera is unfortunately not working, but yeah, just like active participation from our members, and also seeing them participate in other community endeavors.
Love that. That is really great. Okay, well, I think we have something for all of you here. I will do my best to go through this. And I know this is a long 90-minute session, so I'm also happy to talk with you one-on-one afterwards. Just let me know if you need any other individual coaching. Our team is always here to do free one-on-one coaching with giving circles who need it. So how I want to start this conversation is saying that thriving is relative. I hope you saw the research that we put out a few months ago, but one of the big pieces that's the sort of first in the field is that we recognize, looking now across 4,000 giving circles, that 7 key archetypes of giving circles are emerging. You have your women giving big, 100 women giving, $1,000 plus. They're moving big grants out the door, more formalized. We have the crowd granting networks, which are really big and size, but the grants tend to be smaller and participation tends to be a little bit lighter touch as well. 3 and 4, belonging through identity and organizing for social change. These are the groups that are typically tighter knit. They fit around a living room or kitchen table. They're really actively participating in their local communities, and it's really about that social change and transformation. We have groups doing tiny micro grants, $1,000 to individuals or cool projects. We have the one-off live crowdfunding experiences, and then we have a lot of groups starting that are more host supported. They either are fundraising for a nonprofit or for other hosts. And so when we talk about thriving, we have to remember that it's all relative. If you're a women giving big circle versus a belonging through identity circle, some of what I'm going to share to you will really land differently. And so here's the QR for the code. I'll do my best. I'm the only one facilitating today, so I'll do my best to put links in the chat as well. But you can read about this entire typology in the In Abundance research. And you can actually map on a bunch of different sliders what your giving circle is focused on. And I think that can help everybody really understand themselves better in comparison to the landscape. So the link for that is just collective giving, collective.giving. It's the easiest URL we've ever made. So when we were coming up with this program, Thrive, we've done literally hundreds of trainings, We Give Summit sessions, resources, all of that. And so we literally looked across everything we've put together, all of those millions of hours of conversation and learning, and put together these 5 key dimensions to help your giving circle thrive. So we have grounding in purpose and culture, deepening member engagement and belonging. Somebody mentioned that already. Evolving giving practices to expand impact, strengthening leadership and operations for sustainability, and growing visibility, voice, and membership. So these are the 5 key areas that I'm going to walk through with you today, and we'll try to loop back if any of those pique your interest more. And I will say that the content in this deck is rich. I will send you all the link afterwards as well, so you can click on all the various resources. So bear with me, please interject with questions as you have them. We can keep this really conversational. So starting off, grounding in purpose and culture. The reason why we want to start here is that it's so easy to 2 years in, 3 years in, get kind of lost in the sauce of what your giving circle is doing, and really going back to why did we even start, whether it's the leader saying that or the full circle. What is it that we really want to do and be? How do we want to show up in the world? Because if you lose sight of that, anything else in my presentation isn't even going to matter. Exactly, Linda, distinguishing yourselves from others. And so I wouldn't overlook how important a conversation on purpose is. There are so many reasons why people join or start a giving circle. So think for yourselves just quietly for a moment, what really brought your members in? Was it more about community and belonging? Some of these bullets here. Was it about equity or systemic change, like what Anna was sharing? Is it around personal development and learning about issues that matter to you, having a conversation about your beliefs? Is it about giving an impact? Maybe sometimes it's just about getting that tax deduction, right? So really thinking about what brought your members in. If you can think in your mind or jot down, highlight 1 or 2 of these, knowing that will then really help you think through the rest of this presentation, how you're actually going to engage people. A beautiful conversation that I love to encourage giving circles to have is super simple. What's the role of our giving circle in our community, right? The unique role that you all play as your giving circle in your community, and just engaging in a conversation with your membership or whoever wants to show up for that. What's the world that you want to live in, and how can you start the work of creating it? What contributions are you willing to make to build that world? What risks will you take to turn those dreams into reality? And a risk can be spending 4 hours a year in this giving circle, right? It's all a trade-off that we have to do in our lives. And so I really encourage you to all think about how you can set up a conversation within your circle to reground yourself in the role and the purpose. The second thing I want to lift up are values. I feel like the word values in the social sector has now been bandied about so much. Everyone's talking about the word values. What are the values of your group? What are you doing things? And I think often people only think of values as this list of words. They think, oh yeah, one of my values is, empathy or equity or service or justice, whatever the word might be. And what we want to push you all to really think through with your group is not just the word, but But then really, what does that mean for you? What is the actual definition of that value uniquely in practice for your giving circle? And then go a step farther to actually think about that tangible example of how your giving circle is going to embody or act on that said value. So I have a few examples for you here. Let's say your value is joy, right? That can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. These are some real value statements from different giving circles throughout the world. So we bring our full selves to our meetings and lead with love and fun. That means we always have food. We dig into our annual comedy fundraiser as a key activity, and there are lots of dog pics being shared on our group WhatsApp channel, right? So you're actually viscerally seeing and getting that sense of joy. And so to the person who was asking about how to distinguish themselves from other giving circles, having values, but having real values that actually you can really understand what that looks like in practice is a really helpful way of not just being that next giving circle on the block with a slightly different name, but a unique place, because people want to find the places that resonate with them. That's also how you're going to grow. That's also how you're going to be able to fundraise. It all comes together in that trio. Let's say your value is trust. We believe that organizations on the ground best know how to use the funding, and so we give no strings attached gift. Again, it's taking a word and turning it into a real statement. Here's an activity that you can read through later around how to reflect on your giving circle values. The thing that is very directly related to values, but is slightly different, is your culture, right? And I want to ask you right now, is your giving circle's culture living up to its desired purpose and values, right? This is that invisible infrastructure around your giving circle. It's how people are showing up. It's how your values are being articulated. It's the habits and personalities, and every past decision you've ever made about your giving circle is showing up today in the culture, because culture is something, if you've ever worked at an organization or been in a school, right? Classroom to classroom culture is different, workplace to workplace, even team to team within a corporate setting can be different. And that comes down to culture. And I think taking the values conversation to that next level of culture can really be helpful to figure out how you want to show up. So let's break that down a little bit. Culture actually means, yes, your values and shared beliefs. It also means how your leaders show up, what your governance structures are, how you actually, deal with processes and partnerships with the groups that you give to. Your culture isn't just the 50 or 100 or 10 members of your circle. It's actually how you're engaging with everybody else that touches you. It's your meeting style and structure, your membership protocols, it's your language and visuals and all of that. So again, if you're thinking about how to distinguish yourself, really internalizing what your culture is and figuring out, is that the culture that I want, I think can be really helpful. So your culture, you can talk about it as family feeling or fast paced or formal or friendly or fun. I think a lot of giving circles lean more towards the fun and the casual and the inclusive and the happy. But there are also a lot of giving circles out there where it's more formal. There are committee structures. The grant making is being taken really seriously. And that experience isn't for everybody. It also is exactly what some people want. And so if you're able to name your culture, I believe that you'll have a better chance of engaging members in that work. So some questions you can ask yourself: how do you want members to feel when they participate? How does your desired culture impact your membership? What are the invisible power structures in the circle? And what are your rituals and routines that form the basis of engagement? And if you look back at your core values, that really helps thread those two needles together. So I suggest doing a little culture audit with your group. I think a great check-in for this is, if you had to describe your giving circle's current culture as an animal or an object, what would it be and why, right? Are you a fox, right? You're really nimble, but you're also quiet as a giving circle. Or are you an elephant and you're always, as a circle, you're always like charging full steam ahead, but you're also stomping on people's individual desires, right? Really making that tangible and visceral for people can be a really fun way of getting into this. And then do the same for what culture you'd ideally like to see, right? What animal or object would you ideally like your culture to be? And you can imagine drawing that on a Post-it or pulling, you could even print a bunch of animal pictures or objects and then have people pick from a stack. So think about ways where these conversations, when you're having them, don't always have to feel like another full group interrogation. What are the other fun ways that you can get people to imagine the culture that they want to see? I'm going to stop there for a second. That was our section on deepening purpose. Any questions or comments from the group that you want me to go deeper in here on this first blue section?
I'm just glad you're going to send us all these slides.
I know, it's a
you.
lot, right? Thanks, Linda.
When you said it was rich in content, you were absolutely right. This is great.
Yes, we really poured our hearts into these. Okay, everyone else good? Is the pacing okay? This is my first time leading this live, so just want to make sure you let me know if I'm going too quickly. Okay, thing number 2, deepening member engagement and belonging. So this is the question that everyone always has. I have a circle, but people aren't showing up for meetings. I have a circle, but people aren't raising their hands. Everyone's too shy. So there's lots of questions here. I think it's really important to remember that every giving circle, what is it? A group of people. Like that's all a giving circle is a group of people. We all have our own personalities, our strengths, our different engagement styles. And so by naming here the personas in your circle, the typical roles that people are saying, people can then better understand how they might get engaged in your circle. I want to start with one of the findings from our In Abundance research report that I was mentioning. These are the reasons, top to bottom, that people list as the reasons why they want to join a collective giving group. So you can see increase the impact of my giving, right? That's like the classic one, learning from others. The third one here is other, which means that there's a whole host of reasons that you probably can't uncover if you've ever asked this in a survey, right? And so that's going to take some one-on-one time with folks to really tease that out. Building relationships, giving to causes overlooked by traditional philanthropy, like what you were sharing, Anna, working with others to create social change, being more intentional and strategic in your giving. So these might be good indicators for you of the reasons that many other people are engaged in this movement, but what is it for you and your circle? Really reflect on some of that. And then this is the corollary chart. What is the self-reported impact of being a member of a group? So the first one is why you joined once you weren't part of it before. And the second one, you see a sense of belonging rises to the top, right? Confidence to take action and positively change our community, ability to live your values, ability to live a life with purpose, feeling that your voice matters. So this really turns much more personal once folks get into the giving circle, which is such a powerful reminder that folks tend to understand collective giving as like something about money, about the influence, right? The top one here, more money pooling together, I can leverage it. But in reality, the impact is about how, oh, we have one person joining. The impact is really on the human being. And so that's so important to be able to look at when you're thinking about your membership. So I think that there are 5 key personas that I see time and time again in giving circles. You got the torchbearer, right? These are the founders, the longtime members. They hold all the institutional memory and passion. The energizers, these are the, the little honeybees that are always bringing new ideas. They want to act fast. They thrive on momentum. You have the connectors. These are the folks that really are deep into relationships. They know people everywhere. These are the folks that you want to go to when you're trying to recruit. Then you often have the quiet builders. These are the folks a little bit behind the scenes. They're always going to do their work on time. They'll steadily contribute, but they don't always want to be out front. And then you have the observer who is attending, sometimes likely listening, but they might not know where they're fitting in yet. Every giving circle, like that's just going to happen in a giving circle. You're not going to have your whole membership be exactly on the same level. We all know that attrition happens, people join, people leave. And so you're always needing to think about this observer persona and how you're bringing that group along. It's a lot of work to do that, but you can think through ways of the systems to be able to move in that direction. And the reason that I love this concept of personas is that I think it really helps you then understand how to tap into their zone of genius. So if you're able to look at your circle, map out here are the, roughly, we have our torchbearers, our connectors, and we have a lot of observers right now. That then gives you a sense of how you can ask them to do things, how you can do that in a way that actually will enable them to do it because you're leaning into their zone of genius. I think this goes to if you've ever given feedback in a job, you know that even if you want somebody to work differently or do something differently, you can't force them to do that, right? Like you have to really lean into what their strengths are. And so apply that same mindset to this as well. Welcome Ariel and Julia to this Zoom. I'm Isis. We're going through this Thrive program. There are 5 key steps we're doing and we're on number 2 right now. So welcome into the Zoom. Looking at these personas, you could also think about what keeps your members coming back. And so I want you to really viscerally think about these 4 metaphors for your giving circle. Are you a giving circle that's more like a library? Are you a place to learn and question and reflect? Is your giving circle more like a living room, a place for connection and stories and laughter and vulnerability? Maybe there's some wine being poured. Is your giving circle more like a workshop, a place where things get done, checklists, post-its, mail being sent out? Or is your giving circle a town square, a place to speak up, to show up, and to build beyond the circle, right? And so as much as you want your giving circle to be one thing, really thinking, is that what my giving circle is right now? Or am I more like a library when I actually want to be the town square? And so if you can start thinking both with the personas and with this sort of place metaphor, I think that'll really help you analyze what your downfalls and strengths are as a circle, and therefore, what are the things that you can do to increase engagement and move forward. And so down here, based on everything we've seen from the field, we have a lot of examples for, let's say you're a workshop, here are some tactical things you can offer for your members: giving decisions, organizing events, fundraising committee work, skill building, leadership development. If you're the town square, you're likely doing advocacy efforts. You could have an op-ed writing workshop. You could host a public event. There's so many different ways. And I just can't underscore enough that you can't be the library but want to be the town square. Like, I mean, you can, but like you have to actually do the work to get from being a library into being the town square. And that's a journey. You have to bring your members along that path. These same 4 can really be a place to ask some questions around your health and your growth and your alignment. So if you're the library, what do you want to learn more about? Who can we partner with? How can members support one another? If you're so excited about being in the living room, how well do you really know each other in your giving circle? How can you go deeper? How and when will we revisit our values and mission? If you're the town square, how are we walking the walk and not just talking the talk, which I think a lot of us are guilty of. So I hope that makes sense to all of you. I would love to hear in the chat, if you can indulge me, your current giving circle. Which of these 4 are you right now? And then do a little arrow to who do you want to be? Are you the library and you want to be the library? Are you the workshop, but you want to be the town square? I'd love to hear if this resonates as a metaphor. Okay, Anna's a mixture of the library and the living room. Yes, you can definitely be mixtures of more than one. That's great. And is that what you want to be, Anna? Because I also heard at the top of the call around the feminist fundraising, which to me speaks a little bit to the town square piece, right? So then it's like, how do you move in that direction?
Yeah, you're right. This is I think we should aspire to be the town square, but now we are a mixture of library and living room.
Yeah, so it's just good to reflect on that. Nora says the library, but want to be more like the workshop. I love that. We are the living room and need to move more to the workshop. That's great. So I hope this made it really simple for you all to just be like, yeah, we're not where we want to be. And so in order to thrive, we really need to get around to that as a group. And so this is another easy activity you can do in your circle. You could put up a post-it if you're an in-person circle, or you could have something like this on a digital tool and really map out, where do all of your members think you are right now? And where do all of your members want to be? That would be so illuminating in itself. And that's a 2-question poll that you can do in 3 minutes. Some examples here from real giving circles that tie a lot of what I've been talking about together. So Rad Fund is a giving circle that hosts regular dance parties for their members. The Asian Women Giving Circle, hosts a comedy night once a year. They give their grants go to social justice artists. And so it's been great for them to bring in their grantees also as a fundraiser, and they feature different artist grantees there. The Lacuna Giving Circle goes on an annual retreat to reflect on their values and past giving and future plans. plans. And so I hope you can see here how like culture and values and the persona of your Giving Circle members and all of that really can come together in what you actually do. There are a ton of other additional resources and tools that we have. When you get this deck, you can click on all of these links. We have a long list of icebreaker questions and games that you can look at. We have a whole big fat document on tips for engaging meetings and attendance. And then this tool that I love, I'm a very tactile person, but this is a card deck that actually has conversation prompt starters for you and your Giving Circle members that are really tailored to generosity and philanthropy and collective giving. So this is a fun tool to use if you have an in-person circle. You can also, it's free. You can get a PDF of this and print them yourselves, or for $25, you can make a donation to us, which covers our printing and shipping costs. So hopefully those are some fun tools as you move your Giving Circles forward. Before we go to the third bucket, anything you all want to chime in with for the second component of thriving? Okay. So the third one, evolving giving practices. So how is the who of your giving aligned with the kind of change that we want to create, right? Who are you giving to? So Anna, you were talking about feminist fundraising or feminist giving, right? Who are you actually giving to? What are the kinds of organizations? I recognize this is in the US context with our tax structures, but you know, it works really all over. Most Giving Circles default to giving to established nonprofits. I think I have I thought I had a chart here, but maybe I don't. So there's lots of other ways to think about who you can give to, and I wanted to expand your horizon on some of that. So this again is from our same report, and it shows the criteria for selecting potential recipient organizations. So a lot of folks base that on alignment with the group's values, supporting marginalized groups, leadership that reflects the communities being served, the same communities served from which our members are drawn, leadership from marginalized communities, community connection, budget smaller than $1 million, that grassroots philanthropy, and opportunities for our members to engage and or volunteer. And so as you look at this list, really think about what are the criteria that you all have for who you're giving to, right? So many circles just start and end with nonprofit. That's it. That's the only criteria we have for a Giving Circle, but there are so many other ways that you can think about refining that. Then that goes back to your purpose and your mission. It also goes back to if you want to be the town square versus the library. It also goes back to why your members are engaging, and Linda, how you can differentiate yourself. So think beyond the box there. One that we really want to lift up are community-based organizations. So I think so many still, because Giving Circles are the perfect entryway for people to get into philanthropy, people who are not steeped and are not nonprofit professionals think about giving as the big ones of the world, right? The Red Cross, the local hospital, maybe they've given to their school before, the Boys and Girls Club. There's nothing wrong with these organizations. All of those should be completely funded. But the beauty and the power of a Giving Circle is that you can be really locally rooted. You can find the local community organizations, and your grant size likely $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 will have such a big difference to a smaller group that has a smaller budget compared to giving to the Nature Conservancy, again, a great organization, but your $10,000 is a drop in the bucket for their, billion plus assets that they have. And so we have a whole playbook on community-based organizations that I can share with you after. One thing here that I want to sort of lift up when we're evolving giving practices is that really being in community with the organizations that you're funding is so powerful in the collective giving space. And we have a beautiful video hearing from many frontline grassroots nonprofit leaders about what it feels like to receive money, to be in community with Giving Circles, and some of what they would love to see. And so I just love this quote from Claudia Arroyo from an organization up in San Francisco called Prospera. She says, when creating partnerships with those who believe in our work, sometimes it's like we're speaking different languages. And the elephant in the room that has to be named, it's power and privilege. It's not about being rude. It's about being honest and transparent and saying what we need. Maybe you don't see it because you have it, and that's privilege. It's hard to understand what our community is going through if you've never even been there, but that's not the problem. As long as we speak it, name it, and move from a transactional relationship to a truly deep relationship, that is what really matters. And to have a deep relationship means we need the space to share even the painful stuff. So I hope you watch this video later. They talk through how to give not just dollars, but dignity, what that actually feels like, funding relationships, not outcomes, really shifting from transactional to transformational, and having giving circles help reimagine philanthropy itself. Welcome, Carol, into our Zoom. Two other examples that I wanted to lift up that I think are so interesting is moving beyond the 501c3 frame. There's a group here in Los Angeles where I'm located called the SAM Initiative, and they gave an amazing presentation. You can watch it here when I send you this deck, but they've started giving to both social enterprises and CDFIs, which are community development financial institutions. Those give microloans to local entrepreneurs that then get fully repaid back. And so I think that's so interesting to think about how the capital of a giving circle doesn't just have to go into grants and that's it and it's out the door, but how it can actually become a little bit of a full sustaining loop model. So you can see here in this graphic that the SAM Initiative sort of donates to the CDFIs or different recoverable pieces. And then the microloan goes out to the beneficiary, the low interest loan is repaid, and then that goes back to SAM, and they're able to do it again and continue and grow that. So that is really interesting. Ariel in the chat says the Southside Giving Circle gives solely to community-based orgs working to advance the quality of life for Black women and girls on Chicago's South Side. Org budgets must be under $500K to be eligible. That's exactly right. I wished more giving circles would be just like the Southside Giving Circle. So thanks for sharing that, Ariel. Another one to think through is giving to 501c4 groups. These are groups that can focus on advocacy and lobbying work. That's obviously not something that 501c3s can do. But if you're trying to be the town square, if your purpose as a giving circle is around social change, really giving in that way is really important to be able to speak your values in how you're actually giving. And one way that I think this 501c4 frame can be honestly confusing for many giving circles to be a part of. And one idea to share is that collaborative funds, this intermediary model all around the country and the world, many of them have 501c4 arms and are a wonderful way of going right into this, so you don't have to feel like you're not sure where to start on the 501c4 path. So in this same video, Maria from Valiente Fund shares how they do their C4 giving and what the benefits are. So I hope all of this part of the presentation inspires you to think more about how to evolve who you're actually giving to and how the structures can then help your giving circle thrive. On the opposite side of the who is the how of your giving. So it's not just the money and where it's going, it's actually how you're using that capital and the how of what that looks like. And so here are the different ways that from our research, the types of financial support provided by collective giving groups. So many of them give general operating or unrestricted costs, but many also still give program grants or project expense grants. Just to clarify that a little bit more, it's so helpful for organizations to have general operating funds. That means it can go to whatever the organization itself deems necessary. Maybe that's staffing, maybe that's fixing the office toilet, maybe that's paying for pencils or computers, maybe that's directly out the door in some program. And the sort of the focus here is on figuring out how to really trust the group and have them decide where that goes. Program or project expenses, I think oftentimes giving circles look at that and say, oh, we only have 10,000 or 20,000 to give, so we want to make sure that it's only going to this piece. In some cases, that's completely fine. What I would always recommend is just have a conversation with the community-based organization or whomever you're giving to. You can still give the money as general operating, so they don't have to deal with the back end of the grant reporting pieces, but you can still say, as a giving circle, we really care. Let's say one of your values is on healing, right? We really care about personal wellness and well-being and the wellness of your staff. We would love if our $10,000 grant went to your next staff retreat, right? You can still indicate what you would love for your money to be spent on while giving it as general operating, as a way to get around of this false binary of just general operating or just program support. Lots of groups also give capacity building support or coaching and leadership, and some, but much smaller amount, give to individuals or capital and brick and mortar development. Nora, I see your hand, please.
Yeah, so my giving circle, we really do focus on program and project expenses, even, capital development. Have you seen a giving circle that's like transitioned to more of general and operating funding? Because I'd be very interested in how to like go about even having that conversation with our giving circle.
Definitely. Luckily, we've seen so many people move in that direction. I think my next slide here, yeah, so this all relates to this concept called trust-based philanthropy. And so some of you in this sector might have heard this ad nauseum, and some of you might never have heard this before. So I don't know for you if that's something that your members have talked about, but I think often I would go back through and think about, why are we giving only project or program-based support? Was that a default decision that was made by somebody 4 years ago and we just happen to still be doing it? Or what is the root cause reason why we feel so strongly, or do we feel strongly at all, about giving project-based support? And then really looking at what a lot of the research says, what folks like the Trust-Based Philanthropy Project say around how much more beneficial it is, especially for small organizations, to have unrestricted funding. And then ask yourself, like, why are we beholden to the project model, and how can we take steps to move to an unrestricted model? The most clear thing I can say is that you can make that decision overnight. If your membership decides that it's okay to do that, your next grant can be unrestricted. There is nothing saying that you have to be program restricted or anything. Like, it's a switch that you can turn right on and off. It really is more about making sure that the membership understands and can move in that direction. Linda, do you want to join in the conversation?
Sure. We used to give project-based, and then we asked our grantees, what would be more beneficial to you? And over again, we heard, trust us, please. We know how we should spend the money. And sometimes, if we're giving $100,000 grant, it's tough to come up with a particular project that's going to be 100,000, but they have 8 million things they could do with 100,000 to propel their organization.
8 million.
So we did a lot of education with our members, and everybody's been thrilled. And when we have our grant award celebration, when the grantees get up, they're just like, thank you, thank you, thank you. So
thank you for sharing that. And I would say, to anyone who's trying to transition, list out why you were originally doing that, list out your fears, and then that's exactly right. Actually talk to the people that you're giving to and have this conversation, right? What right do you have to determine everything? This has to be a partnership and a transformational opportunity for everybody involved. And I think the Trust-Based Philanthropy Project is an incredible resource to really think about how to do that. We've developed 2 things that I think will also be helpful. We have a whole full resource on trust-based philanthropy explained just for giving circles. So we know that a lot of TBP is for big foundations. That's how they couch all of their language. This document was a partnership with the leadership at TBP to really bring it down into the terms and the experiences of how giving circles tend to do their work. So I encourage you to read that. And here are some of the top things that we've worked through. So many giving circles only give to one organization one time and then they move on. But it's always helpful to think through how you can give multiple times to the same organization for their own sustainability. And so one way that I've seen circles do that is, like, let's say you give a $20,000 grant every year, consider giving a $15,000 grant to one organization and a $5,000 organization as a $5,000 grant as a follow-on piece in year 2, right? So you can then keep that sort of sustainability accountability there a little bit and have that relationship go deeper. You can also, don't forget that you can always go back to your membership and encourage folks to continue giving beyond to some of the organizations that matter a lot to them. Not everybody's giving only goes through their circle. Many folks have much larger checkbooks in the back that they could give to others. And so really think about how you're positioning that. Do the homework, simplify and streamline paperwork or get rid of it completely, be transparent and responsive, solicit on and act on feedback, and then offer support beyond the check. So hopefully some of these tips and tools are helpful for you as you think about trust-based philanthropy in your giving circle. We also have a great video on power sharing, power yielding, power building, a lot of terms that are sort of, again, shared a lot in the philanthropic ecosystem, but I think for so many giving circles who might just be coming into what it means to do philanthropy might not be a concept that you've ever really thought through. And so this is a great conversation to listen to. I encourage you to do so. Sudha and Seiji are incredible. Another way to look at this is really focusing on equity or racial equity centered grant making and how to do that. We again have over our 5 years, we've developed so many toolkits, but there's a toolkit here specifically from these three amazing women, Tracy and Natasha and Joy, who put together this racial equity centered grant making toolkit. So if that's a focus for your giving circle, I think that'll be really helpful for you. The next piece on the how of how you're actually doing your giving is that we often only think about this middle circle of giving treasure, but one of the most beautiful things about giving circles is that it's all 5 T's: time and testimony and talent and ties. And so as you're doing your giving, think always about how you can bring these other pieces to bear. And I think the paradox here is that even though it's more work, potentially, for your giving circle members, that is where the connection comes in, the heart comes in, the passion, right? Think back to the personas, what's driving people. If they're actually able to share a specific skill or build a certain relationship or advocate because they're somebody who's always out there connecting people, right? Asking them to do more will actually engage them more. And so I think sometimes we think about like, oh, people aren't even engaging in meetings. There's no way we could go on a volunteer activity, or people aren't showing up to X, or they're not voting on Y. There's no way that we could bring in a speaker and then offer a skills-based training to the local nonprofit based on who's in our giving circle. But really think about that compounding effect of how you can bring people in and along into this work. Ways to support the dollars. I'll skip this because we've talked a lot about it already, but you can read this further into the future when I send you this presentation. Additional resources here. We have a whole toolkit on how to find nonprofits and leaders to support. I think I often hear there's many groups out there who are the sort of 100 Who Care model, or the the Together for Good Grapevine model, and many of them, members are the ones suggesting nonprofits to give to. That is incredible. That means you're really pulling from the wisdom of your group. The downside is that if you have a lot of people who aren't fully steeped in the nonprofit community, you'll tend to get nominations of, again, the Nature Conservancy, the Red Cross. I love those organizations. I'm not trying to rag on either of them, but again, really think about how you can go deeper with the community-based groups, and this is a great toolkit to do that. We have a great session from a past We Give on funding the grassroots, trust-based practices that affirm community-based organizations, and we have a whole toolkit on ways to give beyond the money. Before I go to our next one, anything that somebody wants to add or a question here on this third topic that we've talked about, evolving giving practices? We'll keep going. So I think this is our 4th one now. So the 4th one here is strengthening leadership and operations for sustainability, right? This is the nitty-gritty of how to thrive. So really think about, how is leadership nurtured, distributed, and intentionally transitioned over time, right? Many giving circles are built on the energy of that one founding member or that group that started. But that spark shouldn't bottleneck the rest of your giving circle forever. And long-term sustainability has to mean building a leadership pipeline over time. And too often giving circles don't do this. And then as soon as something changes in the life of the founding member, they move, they have a baby, they get married, they go back to school, the circle dissolves. And so think right now for your giving circle, what is the state of who the founder is or the founding team, and how can you think about succession? So there's a few ways that you can do that. You can, number one, encourage paired leadership. So Philanos is a giving circle network for women's giving circles that does an incredible job of this. They always have two people, one person, you can consider them sort of the chair, right? The main person leading the network, but they're always mentored, or they always are serving as a mentor to an upcoming mentee. And that person follows them in every single meeting. They make every single decision, right? They're always there, but they're not it's not like a co-leadership model. It's really about like a mentor-mentee. And then the next year or the next 2 years, as that main person rolls off, the mentee becomes the mentor and the next mentee comes along. Implementing something which is so simple at the end of the day, but doing something like that means that you'll never be in a leadership bind. If anything ever happened to that main person who's doing a lot of that work or the directions or the leadership pieces, you're always going to have that backup person in the pipeline, and it'll create that steady rhythm. The second is to really think about considering widening your leadership pool. If you are just a 1-person or 2-person leader model, the metaphor I always use is like, it's a circle, not a triangle. You don't want to just have 2 people at the top. You really want to have a lot of other folks who are able to move things along. And so many giving circles have success with teams or committees or different people doing different things. And so it's important to consider that. And then this third one is also really simple, but keep a living playbook, right? Think about back to what I was talking about with values and culture. You need to be able to write that stuff down and have artifacts over time, guides of templates and decisions and tips that new leaders can build on, so they're not starting from scratch. I know at my local school, right, they have like a fat Bible, and whoever is on the PTA, they just hand that Bible of how everything works for every fundraiser for the school down to the next person. That helps so much in not having to reinvent the wheel and really helps on the sustainability front. Our research found that giving circles tend to be around on average for, ready, 7.5 years. That's a really long time. I think some people think about giving circles as being like flash in the pan experiences, but actually these are long-standing things. And I bet that number could go even higher. I know so many giving circles that have been around for 10 years, 20 years, right? Pushing on 30 years now that this movement has really been growing. And so it's important to think through how leadership can realize your goals for how long the circle might last. One key tool that I think is really helpful is, again, really simple. Nothing I'm sharing in this presentation is rocket science. It's just trying to bring it back to the surface of your minds. Hold an annual reflection meeting with the leadership or with the full circle, depending on how big you are. Think about how well do we live into our values and vision? What worked well? What are we going to carry forward? What didn't? How are we going to adapt? What did we learn from the gifts and the grants that we made? How did our funding align with our intentions? Back to that purpose question. In what ways did we give our full capacity as individuals? What new strategies can expand our reach? There's so many different ways that you can think through these questions, but just having the time and space to do so is so important. I'm going to read a comment from Ariel. We have 4 co-chairs and a project manager role to support the back-end work. We are fortunate to have PO's support as a liaison to the foundation as well. PO meaning program officer. There is definitely enough work to go around, especially since we've enacted committees to spread the load: development, member engagement, and leadership, a professional development award. Thank you for sharing that, Ariel. Yes, I totally agree. 4 co-chairs and a project manager. That is often the work of a giving circle. One other thing that really surprised us in the research was that actually a majority of giving circles have some amount of paid staff. I think we tend to think of this work as purely volunteer based, but that's not actually true. We all know how much work goes into running a giving circle and leading a giving circle. And lots of the times it's really helpful to have some paid support. And that's something to also consider about how you're fundraising from your members. We know a lot of circles that implemented a best practices of let's say their annual giving ask of each member was I don't know, a $500 floor, right, with no cap on the top. Maybe they also ask for $50 to go into an operational pool to pay for some support or pay for supplies, really being able to spread that load a little bit. It's important to normalize that things worth doing take money to do, right? It's the same thing why we want to push back on the nonprofit myth that overhead is bad. Overhead is what makes nonprofits work. Overhead is kind of also what makes giving circles work. And a lot of that is the sweat equity of the leaders involved. So don't be nervous to ask for a little bit of funding as well, and teach your membership over time around the importance of giving to that as well. Okay, another point here on the leadership and sustainability is how is what I call the invisible hand of facilitation shaping your circle? So there's so many points where your giving circle is technically being facilitated that you might not even know. It's not only that one meeting with the Post-its or that one time where you're deciding between grants. It's also how you're facilitating members to come in and that norm setting and those conversations that you're having. It's also about the relationship and the community building and the culture. It's about the discussion and the decision making that you do in your circles. Those are the actual meeting pieces. It's how you're following up and following through with folks and thinking about facilitation as an active tool that you can use. That's actually how your circle's values come into play, how the culture is shaped, how you can execute on moving your giving circle from a workshop or a living room to a town square or whatever persona you're thinking through. And so think about, especially let's say you have multiple co-leads or co-chairs, think about actively how all of you as leaders are facilitating that flow of your giving circle thriving over time. One tool that I think is really helpful that we don't that many folks don't know enough is if you're more of a small group consensus-based giving circle, there really is a difference between consensus and consent in a giving circle, right? So this is such an easy tool to think about, but if everyone agrees, it's consensus. If there's a proposal that everyone can live with and nobody has a strong objection, that is consent. Everyone can move forward with something, but some people might sort of quote unquote stand aside. And really when you have no consent is when somebody is blocking it. And so back to what we were talking about of, moving from, let's say, project-based grants to general operating support or different pieces like that. It's just important to remember that not everybody in your current giving circle might be on board with that move. What does that mean for you? Are you okay with that? I think sometimes, especially if there's friendships or relationships built, we're afraid to make any changes in our giving circles because we're worried about losing people. Maybe you're only a 15-person giving circle and you're worried that if you make a switch to something, you'll lose 5 people and then all of a sudden you're only a 10-person giving circle, right? And so what I would push you on there is to really think through, yes, you might lose a few folks in the process, but what could you gain on the other side of making some of these decisions? Would everybody then feel more strongly towards what that giving circle is doing in the world? Are you able to be more clear around your unique benefits and aspects of what your giving circle does, which then in turn will help you get more members to come in? So just think a little bit around as you switch your giving circle to thrive more. This is going to be a process. How are you thinking about doing that in concert with this slide? Is this going to be a fully consensus-based process to change who and how you're giving and what you're doing and who's in the membership and what the vision holds and what the culture is? Or is this more of a consent-based process and you might refine who's in the membership over time to meet that grander vision for the group? There's lots of tools coming up these days in the Giving Circle facilitation ecosystem, not just Giving Circle, but any facilitation ecosystem. Think about, we love using Mentimeter here at PHT if you've been a part of our trainings before. This is great for word clouds or polling or more sophisticated 2x2 matrices. Don't overlook the power of what you can gather from people. Like I was saying, a 2-question poll around what is our culture like right now and what do we want our culture to be, right? If you make that fun and visual, people are also more interested in being engaged. There's the much heavier lift of a Miro type tool with Post-its. I often use Google Slides actually as a sort of hack way of doing that. If you just make a bunch of squares on a slide as Post-its, then people can be in there and scrolling around. I think sometimes that's a lighter lift for folks. And then I love the tool called Padlet. If you haven't heard of that before, you're able to put up more of these card-based pieces. But what's nice is that you can then have threaded conversations underneath each topic, and you can vote on things or heart things or star things. So that can be a more nuanced way to get feedback. Let's say your meeting is coming up in 2 months and you want to have a conversation around switching from project-based to general operating. You might set up a Padlet, which is free to use, by the way. I think up to 3 Padlets are free. You can set one up and just ask, what are all the reasons why we are nervous about moving in this direction? People can pop on there with their comments, and then others can add in the comments to that. And so you can start having a more nuanced, robust discussion before you even get in the room. And then when you have the precious moment of having 20 people in a space together for your giving circle meeting, you can focus more on not the pulling of the information up front. You can actually look at, okay, seems like we're really worried about these 3 things. How do we overcome it? How do we get on the other side of that? So don't overlook the importance of tech tools, even if you're an in-person giving circle. There's a great video here as well from Cherie Tang and Amber Gonzalez Vargas on facilitation and conflict resolution that you can watch afterwards. Linda, yeah, thank you for joining us. We'll definitely send you the deck. I'm glad the content has been helpful. One other piece to bring up that relates to this consensus piece and overall of creating a thriving giving circle is that conflict is going to happen. It just is. Giving circles and doing anything with humans isn't for the faint of heart, right? There's so many ways to think about conflict. Number one, just expect it and welcome it as a sign of care. It means that people care enough that they're frustrated with something, right? There's so many ways to think about conflict actually as a positive and not just as the negative connotation that we often have. Set community agreements early on. Name the harm or the tension and when it happened. Use a simple framing tool like oops or ouch or can we pause here as a way to interject in any intense conflict moments to move forward. And there's lots of other opportunities here to think through what conflict looks like and how to approach it. And we have a whole resource on that too. Somebody is sharing in the chat, we use a great tool called rankedvote.co for ranked choice voting. Yes, Julia, I love that. There's so many cool, interesting voting tools out there nowadays. So I love that you're sharing that. Thank you. The second thing here is what stories or signals or just simple data points can you start capturing to reflect on your collective impact as a circle, right? And so we often think about evaluation and data tracking as something that has to be super formal. And what I want you to encourage you to think through is how can you do a lot of that in a more informal way and keep it really streamlined and simple? Here are some examples of what you might track in your giving circle. On the leadership front, what are all the different types of roles that somebody can play? Are there term dates or when were people rolling on and off? How can you document that history? Who's participating in what committee? What are your higher level vision or mission or values or the culture that we were talking about? Do you have that on one clean piece of paper when new members join? On your membership, can you capture their contact information or demographics, their financial contributions if you're at that level of transparency with one another, other leadership roles that they might be playing, the membership size over time? On the grant making and giving side, you might be thinking about tracking who you've given to and how much funding they received, and if you have any reporting timelines, which I hope you don't, and any proposal information. And then on the events front, so many giving circles host events. Are there ever any attendance overlaps with current membership? And are there ticket sales or funds raised that you can track? So start thinking about what is the sort of Bible of truth for your giving circle. Can you keep that all in one Google spreadsheet, right? Or one Airtable, so everything is in one place for your giving circle? And how can you keep that easy? Or use an incredible tool like Grapevine that we partner really closely with that has a lot of this built into their platform as well. On the evaluation front, I think it's so important to remember that from a trust-based philanthropy perspective, we really encourage people to not have deep reporting requirements and all of that. But this also doesn't have to be a throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I need to know a better metaphor that isn't so horrific. But how can you still be in relationship with people, still understand the impact of what your gift did? The example I gave of $10,000 and you gave it as unrestricted, but you were hoping that it went to the team retreat. Can you have a conversation with the leader of that nonprofit 6 months later and ask them how the team retreat went or how they're doing as an organization, and really evaluating the impact that you're having, I think is really important if you're thinking about fundraising, if you're thinking about trying to show your impact to potential prospective members. It's really important to be able to thread those needles of how a gift then ultimately turns into something. And then one other piece that I hope the research has been making clear is that so much of the impact of a giving circle isn't just on the money out the door to a nonprofit. It's just as much to the members themselves and on the members themselves. And so try to capture that too. Look at some of the questions we asked in our big research report. Ask those same questions to your members. Why did you join? What are the benefits that you're experiencing right now? Give them that checklist. It's a really simple question to ask, and that can be a great way, again, of knowing where your circle stands right now and how you can grow it and make it thrive down the line. The third thing that I want to reference in this section is how can technology play a bigger role in streamlining your circle operations? AI, my friends, is fully here. It's not going away as much as some of us would like it to. It is here to stay. And so it's important to remember, oh yeah, here's our spotlight on Grapevine. They're an incredible platform if you don't know them. So I would highly recommend considering them, especially they're just in the US and the UK right now, but consider using them for your back-end management pieces of your circle. But yeah, AI is here to stay. It's something that we're not going to be able to get over. And it's also really helpful. It's something that your circle can 100% use to streamline administrative tasks. How can you have it running in the background of a meeting to then immediately surface action steps? It can enhance communications, like use an AI empowered platform like Canva to create really engaging visuals or social media content, right? You can streamline so much of that. Data-driven decision making, right? Look at who you've given to in the past. The most incredible thing about AI is that you can literally just say, here's every group we've ever given to, or even bigger than that, here's every group we've ever got a nomination for. Help me look at the patterns of who my membership tends to surface, right? What issue areas are people surfacing? What size of group? What focus? Is there something deeper, a pattern that's deeper in there, right? It can look at that huge amount of information that you would never look at yourself as an individual Giving Circle leader, but that can really fuel more deeper conversations within your group around who to give to, where to give, how we want to change our practices. It can personalize member engagement. And then the key thing here is to really think through the ethical considerations, ensure transparency and inclusivity in your AI applications and ways that you're using it. And I think here on these quotes here, I think are great. If we avoid AI completely, we leave the design to people without our values. It's not about avoiding risk. It's about engaging with intention. AI reflects the people who create and use it. And Nina says, think of the AI wheel. Data collection leads to the algorithm, leads to the output, and then the interpretation, and then the strategy, and then the action. Each of these steps has an ethical implication. And one circle I mentioned created an AI value statement before they ever used AI tools. And that's the level of care we need. So don't go into this willy-nilly. Make sure that your membership is really in a sort of understanding of how you're using AI in your circle, but I think it's a really important tool to not overlook in today's day and age. Some additional resources for this section. There's an evaluation toolkit that we have. This is specifically for hosted giving circles or for groups hosting giving circles, so community foundations, women's funds, and the like. But I think there are some great questions and tools within that you can also use in your own everyday individual giving circle. We have a tool on creating shared community agreements and a tool on navigating conflict within your collective giving group. You all have bared with me through 4 of the 5 tips to thrive. So our last one for today, we're doing perfectly on time. Would love to open it to conversation afterwards. This final one is growing visibility, voice, and membership. So number one, telling your giving circle story. If you want to be out there, if you want to grow your membership, you have to tell your story. There's no two ways around that. Really consider your goals. Shine a light on who you're elevating within the profile of your giving circle. Who are the grantees that you're working at? Have a strong hook for what you're doing, especially when your members can offer their unique perspective on something, and always ask whose voice is not being heard in this story. That hook could also be timely, something we've now worked with a PR firm for a long time. And what I've noticed about the work of PR firms is that they really understand that you have to tie it into the hook of what else is happening out there. And so that can be as simple as, you know, it's Mother's Day and we're a women's and girls giving circle, and one of our grantee held a Mother's Day brunch, and that's how that ties together in your social media post or what have you. Or it could be something happening in the news, or a natural disaster, or a trend that you're seeing, right? And then lastly, really be authentic. Share community voices with care and consent, reflect their lived experience, and highlight trust and connection over outcomes when you're telling your giving circle story and the story of your grantees. So don't exploit the group that you're giving to tell their story, right? This is not trying to make this a really transactional thing. Really have the storytelling of your giving circle be a bigger, bolder, two-way transformational street. The second question and point here to reflect on is, what kind of relationships, new or old, could help your giving circle grow? I think oftentimes we think about, okay, I have a nominations committee. They're going to name 4 people that should join the circle, and that's it. And what I wanted to share here is this graphic. Your relationships bubble out from you, right? So think about yourself. You have your family, your neighbors, your coworkers, your close inner tight circle of friends that are on your favorites list in your phone. But then you have your much broader circle of acquaintances, the teams you've been on in the past, the communities you're a part of. Then you have all of the networks and the associations that you are a part of. And then even beyond that, you have your whole digital footprint, your social media friends and followers. And so even a simple graphic like this can really help people jog their thinking around, who are all the people I know that could potentially be interested in this giving circle? And then even beyond that, the network effect is how giving circles grow, right? So this graphic here in the bottom left is this. That's you and your whole network, right? And so you might reach out to one person, they might join, right? But then that person has this whole other network, and right, they bring in the whole other network. That's how this really expands just beyond you. And so I really don't love when folks have nominations committees. I understand that you need somebody at the end of the day to be responsible, but the work of growing your giving circle isn't the work of 3 people. The ripple effect of having everybody be in charge of growing the group, if you're in a growth phase, is what's going to really help get that out there more. So you can have a growth committee or whatever to keep people on track, but have the actual practice, the culture of thinking about how we're going to bring new people in, something that everybody in your giving circle is focused on. Another piece we often get asked about is the fundraising question, right? Many giving circles are bringing in the donations from their individual members, but they really have bigger visions for what they want to achieve in the world. And so they really want to think about how to expand their fundraising to others beyond that. And so here are some tips from this great video at a We Give Summit session that you can watch later. Number 1 is always lead with heart and your purpose. That's why we started this whole presentation with what the purpose of your giving circle is, so that you can make sure to really go back to what is core to your values, to your culture, to the kind of change that you're talking through. Root your ask of anybody, whether you're asking an individual member to give more, or a local business to donate, or a local community foundation, or somebody with a DAF, or whomever you're asking. Root your ask in the mission and the impact that your circle is creating. That then loops back to why we're talking about impact evaluation. Share your personal why alongside your circle's value, right? If you can make the ask really, really personal. I joined because of this. I have experienced the benefit of this. This grantee that we gave to that I was so excited about did this. I think you, because of X, would be would be a great addition to our circle, or I think your donation would mean a lot both to you and to our group. If you can really root it in the why, people are more likely to then give. Build genuine relationships. Treat donors and prospects as collaborators in your vision. Personalize your outreach and really focus on that long-term connection and not short-term asks. For those of you not in the fundraising philanthropy space, I think the stat is that in order to land any dollar into an organization, you have to touch somebody 7 different times. That can be as simple as, reading one Instagram post, getting one email from you, seeing you at a volunteer event, reading 2 more Instagram posts, but people need those touch points to then eventually make a donation. That's how it works for nonprofits in the fundraising sphere. Don't think that it's any different for your giving circle, right? If you're trying to bring more money in, it's not as easy as just going somewhere and asking once and all of a sudden you're going to get a $20,000 donation from your local community foundation or a local family foundation. You're going to have to build those relationships over time, but it really can be worth it. And we've seen a lot of circles have success in fundraising so far above and beyond what their members are bringing in. And it's a really powerful way of getting more impact out the door to the groups that you're giving to. Make it creative and joyful, or whatever your circle's values are in your culture, bring that into how you're asking. And then really stay clear and accountable. The challenge with fundraising is follow up and follow through. And so you need to put all of the folks with the persona of the checklist and the spreadsheet and the get it done and staying accountable. That persona of a member in your circle will be really helpful in the fundraising. Yes, you also need the charismatic person doing the ask at the end of the day. And you just as importantly need the person on the back end staying on top of who you're asking, how many times you're asking, what you're giving them to make them change their mind. So definitely watch this video. It'll give you a lot more insight into how to do that fundraising. Let's see, back to the finding new members piece. There's many places to actually look for new members if you've sort of exhausted this look of the network effect. So think about your local formal associations, professional associations, ERG groups at local companies, frats and sororities, churches, or local informal associations, local book clubs, look on Nextdoor or meetup groups, adult sports leagues. Think about all of your partners and your networks out there, referrals for rising leaders from boards that you sit on or some of your grantee partners, and then definitely don't overlook social media as well. So hopefully this gives you some key tips for finding new members. And then I want to leave you with a few recruitment tactics and messaging. Really think through what is the hook message that aligns with your values and vision, that is personal to you and that will entice the person that you're talking to, right? This is a chance to be part of something new. If you're growing a new giving circle, be part of a community experiment, join your community for a meaningful conversation and get to know your community. Start the new year by doing good together. There's many ways to think about that messaging. And again, AI can help you write that and do that really well. Things like AI, if you haven't used the tools a lot, is you can actually say, I'm trying to recruit members, give me 10 sample messages that I can use based on this one pager about my giving circle's values and what we've given to in the past, and do it in a way with this style of voice, right? Make it really approachable and have a strong focus on, healing, like I mentioned, was a value that a circle had, right? Like you can actually tailor how you're talking based on the voice and the values and the culture of your giving circle. How are you going to also talk and think about the communications, right? So there's within the circle, member to member, how everyone's talking. Are people on the Grapevine platform or Facebook or WhatsApp? How are you talking to the groups that you're giving to? And then how are you talking to external audiences? This is where that fundraising piece comes in. And so if you think about these 3 places, about how you're communicating, why you're communicating, really refining that can help you get into a much better place over the long term with your circle, with how members are engaged, with how you're able to tap into fundraising potential, and with how you're able to build and maintain lasting relationships with the groups that you give to. And then lastly, but not least, how are you going to connect to the broader collective giving movement? Folks like us at Philanthropy Together, all of the other Giving Circle networks out there, or other giving circles themselves, right? There's so much happening in this space that is so exciting. And so don't forget that we have our YouTube channel, we have a community forum and convenings, we have a global directory of giving circles, we have communities of practice. There's so many things Philanthropy Together offers that I hope you all tap into. And then there are so many giving circle networks out there that if you're not yet a part of a certain one, if you're a women's giving circle, joining Philanos is a fantastic way of getting more ongoing resources tailored to a women's focused group that can help you thrive. Same thing for Amplifier at the focused on Jewish community giving circles rooted in Jewish values, or thinking about Impact 100 for all the groups using that model, or Latino Community Foundation, which is now going beyond California to be more national, and for groups that are more in Latino focused communities, or Community Investment Network for Black giving circles and people of color giving circles. There's so many networks out there that have a lot of value to offer, and I'm happy to introduce you to anyone that would make sense. Additional resources here, we have a whole session at We Give last year or 2 years ago, spotlighting 12 different networks so you can get to know them a little bit. There's this incredible session on ripple effect mapping, on how to understand both your collective impact and your story of impact. And so that's a great one as you're thinking about not wanting to do sort of like old school forms for getting your feedback, but really thinking about how to amplify your message in this more unique way called ripple effect mapping. And then there's also a session about sharing your why, how and when to write about collective giving that this group Proximate Press does, that writes a lot about more grassroots, proximate ways of doing philanthropy and giving. And so they have a whole webinar and toolkit for how you can do that piece. I want to leave you, now that we've gone through the whole program, with the QR code for the research, the In Abundance Report, an analysis of the thriving landscape of collective giving in the US. That has the typology that I referenced for you all that you can analyze yourself against. And it has so much, it's really just chock full of amazing stats, so you can understand your work in context of the field, and then better understand where do you want to grow, and what does thriving mean to you in context of what everyone else is doing. We have so many more resources in the resource library. I hope I've shown you today already by pulling out several of them, but give that a breeze as you're coming up against any challenges. We also have templates and tools, and let us know what you're looking for that we don't have yet. We're always trying to grow that. We have more than 250 videos on our YouTube channel from all of our We Give summits. We have dozens of giving circle spotlights out there. So that can also be an incredible tool for you to learn and grow. There's an entire ecosystem rooting your giving circle on to thrive. And so I hope that you can really see that and understand that, and be part of this work over the long haul with us. That is my beefy presentation for you all today. I hope that was helpful to help you thrive. And for the rest of this call, I know we have about 10 minutes left. So I'm just gonna stop my screen share and use this as an open time to give any additional resources that I can, or advice to help your giving circle thrive. Would love if anyone wants to come off mute and give any reflections on that. Was that helpful? What did that not answer? And any challenges you're still facing that I can try to be of use for?
Hi, this was super helpful. I definitely from this have found ways that we can get more engaged with our members, because that's definitely a priority. Just like those kind of presentations to our members, like our Zoom sessions, I think would be awesome, and not like a huge lift. Um, I have some very like best practices questions. One is, so for memberships, because we are my giving circle, it's been around for 25 years now. So like the founders, they're getting older, and it's come up the question of, can they like transfer memberships? And we don't really know how to approach that and what would be the best practice of
When you say transfer membership, what do you mean?
like if a member could give it to like their child. So they could be
Oh,
like, you are now, because like, so we're like a voting member, so you can now take part, your membership is under you, you can vote in the selecting of the grantee and all that. And so I just didn't know.
and so is it that the older members of your group, would they continue like paying, or and like just the new member would do the voting, or is it just that like they would give their spot up to the new member?
They would give their spot up. So, and our fees are one-time fees. So it's like a one-time 2,100. It can be paid over like a 5-year payment plan, but it's, once they have paid that one membership fee, they're set to be a member for life. So, right, it would be them giving their spot up to the other, whoever they're choosing, family member. But the family member wouldn't be paying another membership fee, essentially.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I haven't heard of that model. You said that the one-time fee is 2,100,
Yes, yeah.
2,100. Yeah. I mean, I think this really goes back to not just for those members, but for the group as a whole. Like, what does your fundraising and giving look like right now based on how many people you have giving that amount of money over time? And since it is only one time, does that mean that you have quite a lot of people, but the money actually isn't growing, right? Because it's only ever a one-time gift? Or what is that balance between the sort of spectrum of how big your group is, how much money they're giving, and where that is being directed, and does that feel in balance? So I would zoom out from just a binary, should they be able to transfer their membership or not, and more about, do we want to be the metaphor of the town square or the living room, right? If this is a living
Hmm.
room or the library, right, and it's really about learning, then I think that's probably fine, right? It's less about constant fundraising and putting out a lot of money. It's really about creating a community where folks are learning and welcoming in a new person. Transferring the membership wouldn't be bad in that case. But if your goal is to really mobilize more funding, or if the rest of the group feels like over the next 5 years we want to, triple how much we're giving out into the ecosystem, then I think probably having more like term limits of 2,100 gives you 5 years, but then every 5 you have to re-up. And so in that case, it would be pretty easy to say you can't, like, it's not a lifetime membership, right? It's more like a 5-year short-term thing.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's good. Like thinking on, right, if we want to be, like I said, we are like essentially the library. So if you want to continue with that, then right, we would just be open to inviting more people. Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, it's really all about what you want and what your intentions are as a group. And then I also wouldn't overlook, I think sometimes we all just get afraid to ask. And so maybe that lifetime member passing their membership on to their son or daughter or whomever, you can still ask that person, that son or daughter or whomever they're passing it on to still give the 2,100, right? If you want to keep that going. So then I think, yeah, just don't overlook um, that you can ask for those things, or at least engage in that conversation.
Hmm.
That likely that person is joining a giving circle because they also are looking for ways to give back and ways to have meaning.
Hmm. Great, thank you.
Yeah, great question, Nora. Anyone else have a question that they want to ask?
Hi, this is Ariel. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much, Isis. I guess I have a comment slash question just in terms of we have really amazing members and super dedicated, but no, not but, and post-COVID, there was definitely a decline in membership and engagement, and we're still working hard to drive up engagement. And so, our fundraising, the pot took a hit. I believe we're making good strides to pick it back up in terms of engagement, but it's still a struggle. So I know you had some slides. I look forward to checking out the slides in detail, but just any kind of like personal experience with galvanizing folks, because people, people's capacity is thin, right? Especially these days. So there's so much work to be done, but capacity is limited. And so wanting to honor people's capacity and desire to be in community, and also, the work continues. So engagement down, thinking about, okay, a book club, this, that, but it still takes capacity to do the thing. And then also it's kind of been a struggle to honestly recruit leadership, folks to take on, additional responsibility. So any just additional comments on that end of things?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel like I tried to put my heart and soul into the slides, but it's just hard. And that's what we hear time and time again. There is no, like, it's just hard. And so I think you're likely doing really good work already, Ariel, and I wouldn't overlook that. I think sometimes what I've noticed is that we get so caught up in what it used to be and how much money we used to be able to give that we overlook and forget that the money is only one tiny fraction of why people are there, the impact that we can all have. Like, it's so, giving circles are so much beyond that money. And so I would just think through a little bit on, is it that you're feeling like, oh, when we gave, let's say, $10,000 a year, we all felt great, and now they're only giving 5, it sucks. Like, try to interrogate why you felt that at a certain number, but not at this number, and just like lower your perceptions a little bit, your expectations around what it has to be from a financial perspective to a broader understanding of what impact looks like. And then just go back to what kind of circle you want to be. And I think if you're really rooted in something that is meeting everybody where they want to be. That's why I can't overemphasize enough those ideas of like the living room versus the library versus the workshop. You might not be engaging people because they want it to be a workshop, but it's really a library, right? So especially if you're a small group, think through, just engage and talk with them around like, where are we right now? What do we want this to be? And having that discussion as a group, I think, will also surface, is there potential for leadership there, instead of like willy-nilly starting a book club, right? It's not about starting a book club. It's about figuring out the right thing that people want to do in that moment. And in that case, I think you'll likely tap into the people that literally would have started a book club with their friends anyway, and you're just inviting them to start a book club in the context of your giving circle instead. But I feel you, Ariel. It's really hard. I'm wishing you all the best, because it's just a challenge.
For sure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. We got 2 minutes left. I'm gonna open this closing poll right now. If you all could please let us know how you felt this training was, how valuable it was in strengthening your giving circle. That would be really helpful for me. And then I will turn off the recording, but I'm happy to stay on just privately with any of you if you want to keep chatting or getting other feedback. Awesome. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being at We Give Summit. This was so lovely to hear your stories and get to know you a little bit.